Kia ora koutou. Colin Bjork here with the Pod Uni podcast, the podcast about podcasting. Today's conversation is with my buddy and colleague Jesse, who is a YouTuber, podcaster, content creator, and crucially, a home distiller extraordinaire. Our conversation is about the intersection of YouTube and podcasting, as well as how to build a community around your content, and then crucially, how to monetize the content that you produce through your podcast and YouTube channels. He offers some really terrific tips at the end of the episode, so stay tuned for those. And if you want to follow Jesse, I highly recommend that you do. You can find out more information about his work at chasethecraft.com, which is also the name of his podcast, Chase the Craft. And crucially, you gotta check out his YouTube channel, Still It, STILL space IT, for all things home distilling. The potato vodka video that we talked about in the interview has now over 3.8 million views. I'm a little bit partial to his historic pirate rum video, but go have a look. It's really great content, and you can see in practice some of the kinds of things he talks about in terms of building community and monetizing his content. Also, our interview was conducted in 2021 and then released in 2022. I just read recently that in the United States, advertisement revenue on podcasting in 2021 has now surpassed $1 billion. So it is increasingly possible to make money via podcasting. And of course, advertising is not the only kind of way to make money on podcasts, but that data is quite top heavy. It's still a large sum of money going to a very small group of people. So always, when you listen to a podcast about podcasting, take the baseline and foundational concepts that we discuss here as a starting point, and then always go and check up on the latest information about the newest platforms and ways to build. But I think we have some really foundational and important ideas that Jesse puts forth in this interview. Hey, so thanks for coming. Thanks for...
Pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, great to talk with you about this stuff, about podcasting and video making and businessing. So yeah, hey, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Jesse. I was born in Australia, grew up in New Zealand. I am a hybrid, don't hold it against me. I run a YouTube channel as kind of the cornerstone of what I do, I guess. And I've got a few other little things out there, one of them being a podcast as well. And I'm sort of in the process of figuring out exactly how the podcast fits in with the main channel, the main YouTube channel.
So yeah, tell me how your podcast has connected with your YouTube videos, and maybe that's changed over time for you. Like what's their relationship, I guess?
Yeah, right. So the big thing for me is that I enjoy discussions. I enjoy long, meandering, getting to know people, really getting to the kind of the basement of an idea, forgetting about it, going on to another topic, coming up with something new, going back. I enjoy discussion. And YouTube's the complete and utter opposite. I'm forced to cram ideas, like squish them down into, I have really long videos. I think for probably the average on YouTube, my videos will sometimes reach 20 minutes, but distilling is a super complex topic. So that is an exercise in slash and burn to get a video to 20 minutes. It's 3 hours, 4 hours worth of ideas cut down to maybe an hour and a half worth of talking. And that's multiple takes and stuff like that too. But then so the editing process itself is a butcher knife too.
Yeah. And you're also pointing to other embedded videos as well.
Correct.
To understand more about this part of the process, go watch this other one, which is not just marketing and pushing the channel. It's actually, no, this stuff is so complex.
Yeah, it's not that there's just so many steps, right? Like, if anyone knows anything about making beer, basically you make beer and then your job starts for distilling. So there was this very romantic, desirable pull towards podcasting, to just be able to get in touch with someone and it doesn't have to be this giant production. We can just literally talk for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I don't care. If it goes on for 4 hours and I'm still having fun, then my assumption is that someone out there is going to enjoy listening to it as well, and whatever, you know?
Yep.
So right from the beginning, the idea with the podcast was to not do editing. I have a safety net. I tell the guests at the beginning, there's a safety net. If you accidentally say something that's going to get you in trouble, you know, or you say something that you realize is a slip of the tongue and it's professionally silly, makes you look silly, I'll take it out. No problems, no questions asked, just tell me afterwards. But other than that, we're just going to talk.
Yeah.
And maybe if there's 30 seconds of dead air because someone has to go to the toilet, I'll cut it out. But anything short of that, no. It all goes in.
Yeah.
And that was so attractive for me because on the bigger produced videos, it might be, I don't know, 30 hours of editing sometimes.
Yeah.
So
and that's editing. That doesn't count the shooting, the scripting, everything else.
Yeah. And I'm fermenting things too, right?
Yeah,
so
doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a long time to wait. Yeah, so the videos are quite often a 3-month project, the larger ones. So the idea of just calling someone up, yo, should we have a talk? What are you interested in? Yeah, I'm interested in that. Let's talk. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I think people enjoy it. The people that are really into it and really geeky enjoy it too, because there's no access point really anywhere in terms of distilling for that kind of discussion. There's a couple of other YouTube channels. There's a couple of other people. Well, there's a lot of podcasts that are tangentially attached to it, but most of them are from the appreciation world. So the people that just like tasting whiskey.
Yep. They'll
do reviews and talk about where whiskey comes from and stuff, but there's no one really digging into the geeky side of things.
Yeah.
So all of that sort of rolled together was a big part of it, but also just it boggles my mind, dude, that I can hear about something. So that this is I've got two podcasts in the can at the moment that haven't been released. One is a rum expert that someone suggested I get in touch with, and it wasn't until after I got in touch with him that I realized how embedded he is in the rum world. So the idea of just being able to shoot this guy an email and say, hey, let's have a talk, because I find it interesting, and him actually saying yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of being like, creep, leave me alone.
Right.
You know? So that's amazing. And the other one, a chemist gone distiller in upstate New York was inspired by a book full of old manuscripts depicting like 16th century stills.
Whoa.
So he got funding from the what was it, ADI, I think, in America.
Okay.
To build these things and test them.
Amazing.
Because he's got this background in chemistry, right? So he's used to lab distilling and all sorts of stuff. So the same thing. I just got to contact him and go,
yeah,
hey man, should we have a talk? And he said yes. So the reason I bring that up is it's kind of a fulfillment of a dream. That was the selfish part of why I wanted to do a podcast. And it's very nice to see that happening. Because as a YouTuber, I can do that, but the only way to actually do it is I have to fly to America and go see this guy. And it's a big difference from his point of view too, right? Because he's got to give up. If I'm going to make a good video with him, it's probably 2 days worth of his time.
Yeah. Shooting all of his gear and the conversations and
poking around and as opposed to, dude, have you got
an hour, 2?
Yeah, a couple of hours, a block of 2 hours to block out on any time that works for you. Yeah, it's very different. So the other thing is too that I realized that I had a platform already, and so the good thing about YouTube is that it has a discovery algorithm built into it, right? So if you're making good content that someone cares about, eventually people are going to start finding it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way YouTube works, really. Podcasting isn't like that.
No,
right?
not at all.
There's no discovery platform. So I realized pretty quickly I've got the advantage of being able to advertise the podcast on YouTube.
Yep.
And the pickup wasn't as great as I thought it was. I guess I misread how compatible the two audiences are and how long people's attention spans are on YouTube. But it meant that from the get-go I had some form of jump.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. It's interesting, actually. Have you seen MKBHD? What's it called? Waveform?
No.
Marquez Brownlee started a podcast.
Yeah.
And it was pretty freaking hilarious to see a video with Marquez Brownlee in it with 40,000 subscribers.
What?
underneath it, as opposed to what's he at now? I don't know, like 20 million
Millions
or something?
and billions. Yeah.
So when I saw that, I didn't feel so bad.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So your podcast was both video content available on a YouTube channel, but also the audio content available on the podcatchers.
Correct.
And you had those channels overlapping for a while, but now you're talking about splitting out the podcasting to a different channel. Is that?
Yeah. So
Talk me through the logic.
the original plan was, the initial thought was I'll put the podcasts on, I use Libsyn.
Yep.
So I put on Libsyn, and it goes everywhere. I don't have to think about it, all the podcatchers. And then I'll take snippets out of that discussion and throw those on YouTube, with the idea being that that'll be a 10-minute clip as opposed to a 2-hour clip, and people might actually watch it. Problem was that I guess people appreciate the production that goes into YouTube a lot more than I thought they would, rather than just the discussion. And even the clips weren't that popular. And it was taking a lot of work it was kind of, how do I put it? It was destroying the purpose of me saying this is going to be low production, right?
Right.
I got to scrub through a 3-hour podcast or a 2-hour podcast.
Find the best bits.
Multiple times, find it, cut them up, make extra thumbnails, all that sort of stuff. So I said, screw it. I'll do the podcast. I'll upload the whole damn thing to YouTube. If people watch it, they want to watch it. Great. So watch time metrics are awesome, because even if you only get 10%, that's 10% of 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's quite nice.
Yeah.
So that's great, but the views were really low. So that's kind of hurting my overall metrics on YouTube. And now I'm thinking of basically pulling that off off the Still It channel completely, creating a new YouTube channel for the full podcast, the way that I'm doing it now, and potentially creating a third channel. So it'd be, I'd have Still It, which would be the YouTube videos.
Yep.
Whatever, Chase the Craft podcast. I haven't worked out what that's going to be yet. And then Chase the Craft podcast clips.
Yep.
And then put, small little bite-sized bits over on that.
Yep.
And like you say, kind of loosely reference the other two from whichever one is talking at that time,
Yeah.
And find organic ways to make that not just an ad.
Yes.
Like there's an actual reason to reference the podcast and bring it up that way.
Yeah, for a longer chat with so-and-so, go check out the podcast channel. Yeah. And so by separating out of a YouTube video channel, a podcast channel, and a podcast clips channel, potentially, you're separating the metrics so that the podcast lower views is not pulling down your YouTube one, which your how to turn a potato into vodka has like 2.2 million last I checked views, so that's doing pretty well.
Yeah, that one took off, man.
It's like every frat boy's dream is take a bag of potatoes and turn it to booze.
It's so funny, hindsight, man. I mean, in hindsight, I wouldn't change anything about it because that's by far my biggest video so far. But before that, everything about the channel was slow, steady growth. So there was nothing that would stand out really from anything else until that video. And then that video took off, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong. But then the how do you put it? The angst of what if that's the best video I ever make sort of sets in because it's so much bigger than the others. But also there's this weird juxtaposition in it because it is. I think that's why it's so popular. Is this rudimentary? Everyone's heard of potato vodka, but it's kind of this myth. No one really knows anything about it. Is that actually what you make vodka out of? I don't know. And then there's also the people on both sides. That's not vodka because it's not made with blah 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 blah. And then of course it's vodka. It's made from potato. Vodka cannot. Like, you're both full of it. You don't know what you're talking about. But that creates tension and communication around the video, which pushes it even more.
Yeah.
And the thing that really pushed it over the top is that I used this crazy big, completely over the top, overkill set of equipment to make it.
Yes.
And I think people were expecting like a 5-step recipe on how to make potato vodka with your microwave or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that kind of, I if I had my time again, honestly, I don't know whether I would do it that way or switch, because I've got equipment too that's, you can buy it for $100 on AliExpress.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I could have used that. I don't know. I really don't know which way that went.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. The YouTube gods, the YouTube algorithm, they giveth and they take away.
Yes. So tell me more about, so we've talked about how the podcast kind of complements the YouTube content. Talk to me about monetizing. Talk to me about, how your revenue streams have been going early in the process and it's notoriously hard to generate revenue from podcasts. But you've got several different ways of thinking through that, I understand. Is that right? So.
Yeah. Do you want to talk specifically podcast
or not?
Everything?
Well, sort of larger, the whole thing, right? So podcast and YouTube. Yeah, because essentially it sounds like most of your, I mean, you've got Patreon, which would be useful to explain to folks. You've got the YouTube, you've got ads there, right? But you had some podcasts were sponsored by so-and-so. And I'm just curious to know kind of how you, it sounds like podcasting is not the primary revenue generator, which is not surprising.
Yeah.
Yet it's still part of the larger picture. So I'm curious, just in general, the YouTube and podcasting revenue,
Right.
how do you monetize?
I think all of it, from every creator, air quotes, creator I've talked to, it's a game of 1,000 cuts. There's no one way to make all of your revenue, and to be honest, you'd be kind of silly to put all of your eggs in one basket, because at the end of the day, we don't own any of the platforms we're on.
Right.
So it's nice to kind of split things up, and we can go into more detail on Patreon, for example, but it's nice to take something completely out of YouTube's hands and put it into Patreon.
Yes.
But there's been a whole lot of kind of, for want of a better word, freedom of speech issues with Patreon as well, where they're just going, no, we don't like you, we're shutting you down, you know. So I do think, it's part of the territory where you're just going to have to find lots of different ways to make different revenue streams to add up to what you need, just because it's just the way to do it. You'd be silly not to. But also on top of that, it's diversification and just kind of covering your bases. If something goes south, then hopefully the other things that aren't affected by that can tide you over for long enough to be able to get you to a point where you can get on your feet again, sort of thing. So I think there's both of that.
So talk me through it, because you've been doing this full time since when?
It was about 2 months after 2 months after COVID was kind of on the radar here.
Yep.
And soon, pretty much before lockdown actually happened, I got
New Zealand lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, New Zealand. Yeah, correct. New Zealand lockdown. I knew my job was going away, and I knew. So I'd been, at that point in time, I'd been running the YouTube channel as a side hustle for 3 and a bit years.
Okay.
And it had gone from putting a buttload of work into it, you know, like working 40 hours plus at the day job, coming home and doing another sort of anywhere between 15 and 60 hours a week on the YouTube channel on any given week for 3 years. And it had gone from making absolutely no money, obviously, through to making a pretty substantial, nice little side hustle cash. But then obviously that was side hustle plus salary, which was wonderful.
Yep.
And then you take the salary away and suddenly you realize that really nice amount of side is nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where I was. Well, I mean, what was that? Like
May-ish,
pretty
April
much a year ago, right?
20, yeah. 2020.
And since then, I pretty much decided I was in photography and marketing in Palmerston, New Zealand, in the middle of a pandemic. I wasn't going to find a job that was worth finding. So I'm not even going to look. I'll just put all my time and effort into the YouTube channel. And I was very, very lucky that it was a YouTube channel that was my side hustle, because I don't need anyone else, man.
Yep.
I need my video camera, I need power, I need my shed and a few supplies. And so for me, it was almost like not a promotion, but I was able to work harder than I had been in the past.
Right, and you can write all those things off as now part of the business. Once you create the business, you're now those are kind of expenses for the business, not...
Yeah, so I was running as a sole trader before that.
Okay.
And then when I realized that this was happening and I was going to have to go all in on it, even just for a little while, I incorporated the company, which had a few added benefits, tax-wise as well. But so to get back to the actual income streams, the first income stream that came along was AdSense, which I think is the same for everyone, right?
Right.
AdSense does not get you rich.
No.
It's really nice to have, don't get me wrong. It's an awesome system. It gets a lot of flack. We were talking about this beforehand. I honestly, my feeling on it is mostly it's people that just want to hate on it, or people that aren't getting the results they want, and they, I don't know, feel entitled to it, or they feel like they've been robbed, or I think it's kind of like it's jealousy, man. It's like people see someone else that's more successful and expect they want it themselves. Think about it from YouTube's point of view, man. It's so freaking hard to run that. The amount of hours of content that's uploaded every second is ludicrous.
Mind-boggling, yeah.
So when you take that into consideration, I think we're doing a pretty good job. So AdSense is great. Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead. Just in case folks don't know what AdSense is.
Okay, cool. So AdSense is the platform that YouTube runs to advertise to the people that watch YouTube.
Yep.
And generally, well, pretty much the way it works is that the creator gets paid based on the amount of ads that are watched on their video, and are more likely to get paid a higher rate if an action is taken. So if they click a link, or if you follow something through, you're more likely to get a little bit more from that. To sort of put it into perspective, we're talking fractions of cents per view. So it adds up over time, but it does take a lot to get to a meaningful amount. YouTube take a cut for it. So the idea is basically a company comes along and they'll say they want to advertise to people that are watching a certain type of content or have a certain demographic. I think it's 30 cents YouTube takes, and the creator takes the rest. So it's great. You don't have to do anything about it. All you have to do is monetize the channel. So that was the first thing that came along for me. It just kind of fell on my lap. And it was, I don't know, so just everything about this, I think it's just human nature, man, but everything about being a quote-unquote creator, there's levels to it. And it seems like you've just got these blinders on, and the only thing you can see is about 3 levels above you. So when you're making nothing, it's like, I just want to make something. And then you get like that first $15 thing go into your account. You're like, yes! Oh, they're not going to pay me out until, I don't even know what the minimum is, like $150 or whatever it happens to be. Yeah. Oh, I just want to get to that I want cash in my pocket instead of sitting on, then you get that. And you're like, great. Now I want $10 a month.
Right.
Now I want $100 a month. Now I want $200 a month. It's just, there's always that next thing. Yeah. So it does add up. And if it's a side hustle, it turns into some decent cash after a while. And I think the biggest thing is it's motivation to keep going, right? Like it's a way of justifying what you're doing to yourself and keep moving. So that's AdSense.
Cool.
And for the longest time, that was a little bit of cash in the pocket, not a lot more. The big turning point for me was when that little bit of cash turned into the money that funded the channel. So before that, it was literally me going to work at a salaried job, coming home, taking money out of the family account that should have been used to buy something for the kids, and instead buying ingredients to go and
distill some stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the real turning point for me was when AdSense turned into enough cash that I didn't have to feel guilty about just making something. That was cool. And then I started getting, by this time I had a following that was large enough, large enough's not the right word. There was enough people that had been around for long enough, and it had reached a critical mass where it had legitimately turned into a little community. And it was tight-knit. People, for the most part, knew each other's screen names. They replied to each other. I replied to every single comment on every single video.
Incredible.
For a long time. And people started contacting me and saying, we want to donate something to the channel. And me being the New Zealander that I was, hated that idea with a passion. And so there's another guy called Bearded and Bored who we started at the same time. He's like my YouTube buddy. He's got a YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
He basically slapped me around the ears and said, pull your head out of the sand, mate, and stop being an ass. If people want to help you out, let them. So that's when Patreon comes in.
Yep.
So the idea with Patreon is it's a third-party platform that allows you to create tiers of membership and for people to bid into those tiers or to pledge into those tiers of membership. So it can be as little or as much as you want. You set the tiers up, and they say, I'll pay $5 a month, $1 a month, $100 a month, whatever it happens to be, and pay that to the creator. Patreon, of course, take a nice little cut of it.
Yep.
But you can set it up purely as a donation if you want. You can set it up as, what are the typical things? Like typical things are ad-free episodes, so if you buy in at $5 a month, you get the episodes ad-free. Podcast or
video
would work fine. It might be discount on your merch store, it might be free merch, it might be behind the scenes videos. They have what they call Lens, which is stories like everyone else is doing. You can put those up as well. Stay up for 24 hours and disappear. All of those different things, and that I wouldn't say it took off for me, but it grew exponentially faster than any of the other income streams for a long time. So that's what carried me. And so this was this was after we'd had our first child.
Okay.
And then this sort of took off, and then we had twins, and I basically said, no, I'm done. I'm quitting.
Yeah.
And my wife said, no, you're not. You're not allowed to quit. And honestly, the only other reason was kind of, I felt like, okay, people actually care enough. They give enough of a damn about what I do to send me money.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And when it's just, okay, you have the video got a couple of thousand views, it's like, what does that mean? But when it's real people putting credit card digits into a website because they care about what I do.
Yeah.
And thinking about like my wife backing me on it and saying, no, I'll support you. Yeah. And then thinking about them, that's what got me through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's cool because it sounds like that level of commitment is directly tied to the community that you built on YouTube. Like you weren't just slapping up videos to try to make money. You're slapping up videos to create a community of people who were all invested in the same kind of like exploration of what it means to distill. Is that?
Yeah, very much, man. Yeah. And I should have said too, like when I started the channel, I'd never distilled a drop of alcohol in my life.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about I'm really good at this and I'm going to teach people. It wasn't about, me sharing my brilliance with the world or my art. It had nothing to do with that. It was I'm good at ingesting information, rearranging it, and blurting it back out again in a way that's more understandable for a larger amount of people than the original information. That's what I think I'm good at. Yeah. So it was more about that, which meant it was very open to, hey, I did this, but do you think I screwed up? Like, tell me what you think. And then someone would say, no, you did. You messed up, mate. Like that was not right. And then there's a discussion that comes from it. Yep. And because it was a small, respectful community, that was constructive. It wasn't tearing people down. Yep. Yeah. So then Patreon grew, and that turned into a much larger chunk of income than the AdSense was. So now I was justifying this could actually be a business, right? And it kept growing and growing and growing, and basically it was just those two. And then somewhere along the line, I started. There's a company, if anyone else is in the boat where they don't know if they want to make merch, and if they have anything to do with YouTube, I would suggest Teespring, which is basically a drop shipping company, but they print the shirts for you. So you design them, you put them up. When someone buys them, then they get printed and they get sent out. So you're not on the hook for stock. You're not paying anything in advance.
Teespring?
Yeah, like TEESPRING.
Cool.
And the beautiful thing about it is that it integrates directly with YouTube, and it shows up as an ad underneath your videos. Not all the time, just it might show up. So instead of some random person, whatever, trying to sell a cup of coffee,
whatever, or
under your ad, it's your merch that's being shown as well. So that's a nice little thing. The t-shirts aren't, they're okay. Like the quality's not great. Your control over it's not great. But you get to set your prices, and you basically just get to make a few shirts and forget about it, which is what I did. And the point in it for me was, like you said, it wasn't about making money. It was about having people out there in the world with a physical something to say, I'm part of this community.
Cool.
And I love the idea of someone showing up at a bar with a shirt and then someone else going, ah!
Yeah, right.
Which was like a complete dream back then when I started it. But then you realize that you just kind of forget about this, and then you wake up 2 months later and there's a couple of $100 sitting there, and it does add up. You don't have to, the same thing, a death by 1,000 cuts, right? You got your bills paid, whatever that means to you at the time. Maybe it's not paying your mortgage and the kids' daycare, but it's paying the bills for the company. Yep. And then oh, that's right, I'll check Teespring. Maybe there's an extra $100. That's
there you go.
It's basically for free.
Yeah.
You don't do anything for it, So that was kind of what the merch was originally for me, was that both things, right? Yeah, it'd be nice to have the money, but it's about putting something into the community that's tangible, not just a digital video, And then it kind of grew. So then I started sourcing my own products. And I had products inventory in New Zealand, flasks and challenge coins and just random stuff like that I was posting up from New Zealand. And then as the channel grew, it got to the point where that was just, there's only so many hours I can spend writing on envelopes and spend
stamping things
at the post office. Yeah. So it's still not by any means a large amount of money. But you start adding together affiliate marketing.
Yep.
The down and dirty for that is I find something on Amazon that fits, that I use in a product. I get a link off Amazon. I put it on my videos. If someone buys it, I get a cut. It used to be really good on Amazon. It used to be upwards of, I think the lowest category was maybe 6 or 7%, and it went up to 15% or something silly that you would make. Now it's just had the ass cut out of it. So I'm normally making like 2 or 3% on sales now, which sucks.
Yeah.
So I don't really push Amazon unless there's a product that just makes sense. I do affiliate marketing with a homebrew company in America as well, which is a much more obvious fit for me because most of the stuff I use comes from the homebrewing world, and they appreciate the business more. They give me more like 10% on most products. So the same thing, it's not a whole lot of cash, but it adds up, and you start adding Amazon affiliate from them, affiliate from, there's a couple other little companies that I kind of do stuff with, and it adds up over time, like these shirts, for example, into the AM. You put all that together and it starts turning into something, right? And then the biggest development for me recently is sponsors, and I've always stayed away from it because I didn't have time to put into it, and I didn't think the critical mass was really there to make it worthwhile. But over the last 3 or 4 months, that has very obviously emerged as the low-hanging fruit of how I go from making enough money to survive to make enough money to have a retirement.
Yeah.
And then whatever's after that will be interesting to see. But,
yeah, and so can you walk me through maybe an example of how one of the sponsor things work? Do you seek somebody out? Do they seek you out? Or, and how you've talked before about how you've said no to, because you have decisions about saying yes or no to these sponsors, and how do you make those decisions about which products do you actually feel like align with your brand? How do you think through all that?
Yeah, for sure. I actually feel quite differently about these in terms of the YouTube channel and the podcast, and I don't know whether that's because it's a standard in the two worlds, and I've just sort of adopted that standard, or whether it's because, I don't know. This is my feeling on the two.
Okay.
YouTube, it needs to be something that I would recommend to my mum.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like if I don't want to sell crap to my mum, like I don't want to be selling it to the viewers of the channel. It's kind of how I feel. And it has to somehow tie into what I'm doing. So it doesn't have to be something that, and when I say that, I mean in terms of the creativity, the story of the video, right? Even if it's like a lame Linus Tech Tips style segue, I'm cool with that.
Okay.
But it has to be a really good product.
Yep.
And I have to have tried it personally.
Right.
The podcast, I feel much more like, here's a slot of time. It's kind of like the newspaper. If you want to buy a slot in time, I'll vet it. I'll make sure that you're not hated. I'll make sure that you're not horrible. Maybe I'll try it myself. As long as it's okay, then I'm kind of cool with it. It's a slot in time at the beginning of the podcast.
Yep.
This thing's potentially 3 hours long, and this is a minute at the beginning. You know. But the potential for income reflects that as well.
Yes.
So it's
How dramatic is that in terms
prices.
of percentages for our listeners?
It's night and day, dude. Absolutely night and day. So at the moment, everything that's going onto the podcast has been affiliate kind of stuff.
Yep.
So it's basically me giving up my time with the potential for income in the future. That may not be true, actually. There may have been 1 or 2 small ones. But the prices that I'm offering people on that are, like at the most maybe a fifth, probably more like a tenth of what the YouTube channel could be in terms of top dollar for top dollar kind of thing. But I've got a few people that are well ahead of me that have been helping me out and mentoring me on this. And they've been kicking my ass to basically not undersell myself.
Okay.
It's funny, both of them, the first thing they said is, you're going to underappreciate what you're worth, and you're going to let people push you into a price point that you think's okay, and it should be double that. Yeah, okay. And there's been a couple where I've seen the metrics behind the curtain.
Okay.
And I've gone, you're right.
Wow.
Yeah, it
so they don't always share the metrics with you when you...
Oh, no. Most won't. Yeah, it's like the Netflix deal, right?
Ass,
you want to make a special with Netflix? That's great.
Yeah.
Yep, you make a Netflix special, and then it goes out, and you come back to them afterwards. So how did it do? We're quite happy with it.
Ooh.
But how many people saw it? We're happy. You know, it's kind of that sort of thing. Why would they give you the power to negotiate?
Right, exactly.
The only, and it varies hugely. You know, there's the same thing going back to these guys into the AM. They pay me less, but they are insanely easy to work with. And I've been wearing these, like my wife gave me one of these shirts for Christmas 2 years before they contacted me. They contacted me out of the blue. So it's kind of like, it's money for nothing for me. I love the stuff so much. I wear it anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not advertising it. I'm just telling people what I like.
Yeah.
They're like, can you put out a video on Friday? Yep, I'll put a video out on Friday. Cool. And then the money turns up. They don't even check that I've made a video. Whereas others are like, right, 3 weeks before the video goes live, we need to see a draft of the integration. And then 2 weeks before the video goes live, we need to see the integration in the whole video. We have the right to ask for 2 revisions, and it's just...
It's a lot of constraints and...
you know, like,
negotiation
thanks, guys,
and... Yeah.
Yeah. If it's Canon, and do you know what I mean? Yeah, sure, we can have that discussion.
Yeah.
But there's very few products that I love that much to go through that process to make slightly more money. You know, it's just not worth the cash.
Yeah.
It's
For
not
sure.
worth the stress.
For sure.
Yeah. So there's a spectrum, man. There's a pretty big spectrum.
Yeah. So how are you imagining? Right, you've been at this full time for a year, and maybe 4 to 5 years of
about 4.5
hammering out
years.
the channel. Where do you look to go with revenue streams and community building? Right, because I think. Yeah, well, we'll come back to the community thing later, but we should tie up the revenue conversation. I'm just interested in how it's changed over time and where it might go.
Yeah, so now AdSense has overtaken. AdSense has moved up significantly on most other things. I'm trying to actually remember specific numbers, and it's really hard to track the stuff, man, because you start growing. You know, like, so maybe you do 20% growth month on month for 3 months in a row. So do you assume that the next month you're going to grow 20%? Do you assume that that's now you're going to plateau? Or do you assume that that was a peak and you're going to drop back down to what you were 3 months? You know, like... a
lot of guessing.
Who knows, man? Because everything's just like the channel's growing away nicely in the background. And it's pretty hard to compare numbers, to be honest. But yeah, so the Patreon thing is still there. That's still my number one priority. Like, if I've got spare time and I'm going to respond to a comment, I'll go to Patreon first.
Cool.
I'll pull up personal messages or comments on Patreon before I even think about responding on YouTube. I mean, it just makes sense to me, right?
Absolutely.
So Patreon's still there, but like in terms of monetary percentage of the revenue pie, it's dropped off. Mostly because AdSense has gone up and sponsorships come into the game. So honestly, I don't know how it's going to shake out between AdSense and sponsorship over the next 6 months. It'll be interesting to see. And then there's all the little things that just kind of fluctuate all over the place. You know, sometimes I'll make $50 a month on Amazon, and sometimes I'll make $300 a month on Amazon. You just, who knows, you know? So it's all like that, and it's all over the place.
Yeah. But if you had a desired
right
shape of the pie.
Yeah. So my end game, and we talked about this beforehand, is that I want to get to a point where I'm not a YouTuber. I want to get to a point where I'm a business owner, and a solid part of that business might be YouTube, but I need something else. I need something, and when I say something else, I don't mean like another platform, not like Instagram or podcasting or whatever. I mean a service, a product, something that I sell as a business, or that I rent, or that I whatever. It's an experience. It's a still. I don't know. And the reason for that is twofold. One is that I've realized that it is very, very, very inefficient to be advertising for other people on my YouTube channel.
Right.
Why sell that slot when I can sell it to myself for free, and it's worth so much more money? Do you know what I mean? It's worth so much more on any way you slice it to be selling my own stuff. But two, like we said right at the beginning, is I don't control any of these platforms. If I have my own business, I control my business. And if YouTube, the dream is to get to the point where how do I put it? Where YouTube's a thing in and of itself, and the content always comes first, the community always comes first, but the ad slot, when it comes up for grabs, always the first opportunity is for me to buy it myself.
Yes.
As opposed to selling it to someone else. So it's almost like free advertising for the business I run.
Yeah.
And the dream would be to get to the point where if YouTube one day woke up and said, we're classifying alcohol the same as any other drug, no more alcohol content on YouTube, or you can put it up, but you kind of like effectively shadow banned, I don't lose everything.
Right.
Because right now, if that happened, I would lose everything.
Yeah.
I'd have nothing left. I've got an email list, kind of. The hardcore fans, if I went and just put videos straight on my website, they'd find me eventually, but a small fraction of people would.
Right.
So it's both, it just makes good sense in terms of income to make money myself, as to make 100% of the profit myself rather than making a small commission on what I'm selling for other people.
Right.
But it also means that it gives me some sort of survivability and autonomy regardless of what happens in the future.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So this is making me think of a question that I posed to you earlier over lunch, which is sort of about your identity, right? Do you see yourself as a YouTuber or a influencer or a community builder, a distiller, small business owner? And the reason I ask that question is because in the ways that you're talking about monetizing and advertisements, it seems it seems to me in the way that you're talking about it that monetizing is not the number one goal. It's essential to like keeping the thing going, but it sounds to me in the way that you're talking that it's like you said the content and the community are numbers 1 and 2 or tied number 1, whatever. And so I'm curious, like, how do you negotiate that tension between? So now I'm packing in the questions, right?
No, I get
it's your identity, but also like, how do you negotiate that tension between like, I got to sell stuff to like keep the business going. I'd ultimately like to sell whatever my own thing is, but also I just want to create good content for other people who care about the stuff.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know how you think about your identity and negotiating that tension.
I feel like I think about this stuff a lot differently. So my background before this was photography. I went through art school and all that sort of stuff. So I'll relate it back to that a little bit because I think people will get this feeling. So in anything where you are, quote unquote, an artist, there's almost this feeling that you're not a real artist if you're doing it for the money. You've got to do it for the passion. You've got to do it for the beauty.
There's that assumption.
You've got to do the art. Do it for the
art for art's sake.
Yeah. Screw that.
Right. Fuck that.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm a mercenary, dude.
Yeah.
My goal in this is to be able to feed my family and have a comfortable retirement. Like that's what it is for me.
Yeah.
I don't want a yacht. I don't want a private plane. I just want to not have to worry about money. I just want to not have to think about money. I don't need extravagant things. I just need to not worry about it. You know? So that's one side of it. And this feeling of I've always rebelled against it because it just annoys me. It's like, no, I'm here because I'm an artist. Okay, that's your hobby. What are you going to do for work? No, I want to be an artist. Okay, so you need to pay the bills, which means you need to be pragmatic about this. You need to run it like a business. So yes, I care about the people because they're good people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the work's work, whatever. Like that's kind of the business side of it. And yeah, my motivation for being in this is because it's my job. But I chose this because I care about it.
Yeah.
You know, I decided I wanted to do YouTube first, and then after that I decided on the topic I wanted to pick, which was distilling. And I did that because I thought it would be, there was opportunities around it, but also it was the one thing that I thought I would be less likely to get sick of and burn out on over the long period.
Sure.
So that's why I actually do care. Yeah, I'm a mercenary. Yeah, I'm here to make money, but I actually do care about it. And I find the topic fascinating. I find the problem solving side of it fascinating. The fact that we have this group of people that interact and it hasn't just devolved into a steaming turd of YouTube content comments is amazing. But in saying all of that, it how do I put it? If your actual goal is to not worry about money, that to me is a long-term thing, right?
Yes.
So the way to get that goal is to not be a prick now.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying is it almost comes full circle back to being the exact same thing.
Yep.
And it's just I'm doing it for the art, I'm doing it to pay the bills, but to anyone outside that conversation, we would be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
yeah,
it's about the community to me, because without my community, I'm nothing.
You can't pay the bills. Yeah.
And sure, you can. Like you can be, and this is why I hate the word quote unquote influencer.
Yeah.
Because that to me is what an influencer is. An influencer is someone who is trying to influence you to buy stuff that they don't really care about, you don't really care about, but it's all about making you buy shit.
Yeah.
You know, and you can make a lot of money out of that for a little while, but eventually it will come crashing down.
Yeah.
Some people get luckier than others. It lasts longer for some people than others. And it's the same with all of this stuff, right? Like all of the like white hat, black hat, grey hat stuff in terms of what you're willing to do on YouTube to get the views.
Yeah.
You know, or are you willing to do stuff that's borderline outside community policies or completely outside of community policy to get, you know, are you willing to use hacks that are white hat now, but everyone knows that they shouldn't be, and eventually they're going to be grey hat or black hat. And to me, it's just, why mess with all that stuff, man? It's a long-term thing. Like, I don't need it to grow fast now, because it's almost... One of the mentors sat me down not long ago, and I had a question for him. The question's irrelevant, but it was basically, his answer was, well, do you want to grow fast and make money, or do you want to build a community? I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. That was a silly question.
Well, that's the much more succinct. That's the much more succinct way of asking the question that I could have asked. Right? There is that tension, but there's also kind of an obvious answer.
Yeah, and but at the same time, sometimes it's not obvious, and it's really seductive, man.
Yeah,
it really is. I hate social media. I'm a recluse.
Do you have any Instagram, or do you have any accounts for?
I've got Instagram and I've got Facebook. Just because I felt like I had to. I don't.
Yeah.
I'll go through it every now and again. I feel guilty, and I'll take like 10 photos for Instagram and then put them out over the next few days, and then not do anything for 6 months.
Yeah.
I'm not that sort of person. I don't like it. I hate it. But when you wake up in the morning and you open that YouTube Studio app and you see your views have tripled overnight, that feels good, dude. I don't care who you are. That feels good. And it's that potato vodka video. Okay, let's double back. The question I asked my mentor was,
please,
I have videos like the potato vodka video, like the Iron Brew video, like the mead video. So for people listening at home, that's making potato vodka, making mead and distilling it, distilling a soda from Scotland, whatever, making whiskey. I've got these practical videos, and they do so much better than my talking head videos, which are picking a topic that's perhaps controversial in my community or in the larger community, and just talking about it. Like giving my ideas on it, trying to be honest about it. This is my thoughts, this is my feeling, but I don't know, I can't prove it. You know, just sort of chewing the fat. Yeah. Potato vodka video has a potential to get 2.2 million videos in 6 months or whatever it's been. Yeah. Most of those videos I put out will get, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 10 and 30,000 in a week kind of deal. Yeah. The chewing the fat videos, if they get to 10,000 in a week, that's lucky. So I was saying to this guy, like, what do I do, man? Do I make less really, really quote unquote good videos that I think are good? Like, do I only make potato vodka videos and all the practical ones? Maybe only do 2 or 3 a month. Is that better? Or is it better to just keep making these talky ones in between as well? What's better for growth? Yep. And so when he said, you think about it wrong, man. Like, you're thinking about growth. Yeah. Because I saw there's this dirty, great big spike in my analytics from the potato vodka
visual
video.
Of the growth right there.
It's like, I want that again. Yeah. And the idea is, well, no, even the community members might say they want that potato vodka video over and over and over again in different forms. but it's not. It's kind of junk food. It's kind of like junk food information. It's like a junk video. It's not, because it delivers it's not clickbaity.
No.
It's educational.
Yep.
But it's not going deeper. Like, how do you put it? Once it's good for grabbing attention on YouTube, and it's good for people that'll go, huh, how do you make vodka? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll watch it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of comments on that video that say that. I don't even
That was my reaction was, holy smokes, that's really hard. I had no clue how hard it was. Yeah.
But then that's not the core community, right?
No.
The core community
That's right.
that are people that are anywhere from, I want to get into this and I don't know what still to buy, through to they've been doing it for 60 years and they enjoy finally having somewhere that they feel like is a community for them.
Yeah.
Right? So those videos aren't, how do you put it? They're not bringing the community closer together. They grow the community, which makes it harder to bring together. So making videos purposefully sometimes that are, are going to be smaller analytically, are good for the community. And it's funny, man, because way back, like I think in the first 6 months of having the channel, I made some video that did slightly better, and it brought people in that didn't quite fit who I wanted in the channel. Yeah. So I instinctively, the next video I made was basically a video that wasn't telling them to get lost, but I made the video knowing that it would piss those people off.
Interesting.
So it was like big growth. Make a video to piss people off that are the wrong people. A bunch of people say, oh, screw you, you're horrible, whatever, throw insults. Growth goes down a little bit, but the average health of the community goes up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like,
So I knew that back then, but somehow I didn't put it together. That like I said, it's seductive, man. You look at the numbers and you start wanting numbers.
Yeah.
Which isn't what you should want.
Sure.
Necessarily. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you're able to keep that attention on the community and on how the content shapes the community, and the tension between this content that grows the community and the content that binds the community. I think that's a really interesting way of putting it. Because I always tell, in the podcasting class, we spend a lot of time talking about the reason why the first year introductory podcasting course doesn't get to any of these questions is because it's all about creating good content from the start. Because if you don't have good content, then my belief, you will really, really struggle to not just to get people to click it and listen for the first time to your podcast, but to build a community around it. And so I think I'm not surprised to hear that you're invested in the content that way.
I 100% agree. And it used to be my way of kind of curating the community was to be involved. Like I said, I used to answer every question that came in. I just can't do that anymore, dude. Yeah. And that's another interesting thing, actually, man. If anyone is thinking of getting into this, you better figure out how to have a skin of rock really quickly.
Really? Has that been pretty hard, some of the stuff that people throw out in the comments?
Like, I guess really inside I'm kind of a big teddy bear compared to what I look like on the outside for the most part.
He's got a big old awesome beard.
Yeah. But I guess I have always been slightly susceptible I've always wanted approval, I guess, in some way.
We all do. Yeah.
But maybe a little bit more than other people. It's not my point. Anyway, I thought going into this that I would be very, very good at being objective and just shaking it off. Yeah. And for the most part, I have been. But dude, human nature is real. Ooh. You'll be scrolling through through comments, and it'll be, yeah, you're great, you're awesome video, wonderful, have you thought of, that's cool, you're a dick, die. Ugh. And it's stupid. Like, obviously that person is it means nothing.
Screwing around. Yeah, they're not even related to the...
Okay, screw you. But that just sticks in your head, man. Like, you've literally scrolled past 100 comments.
Amazing things.
Yeah. And that one thing gets stuck in your head. Or even worse is when they say something and so I love it when people call me out on my bullshit. Okay. Basically, I love it. It's awesome. As long as they do it in a way that, how do you describe it?
Constructive?
You're a name on a screen to me, man. Like, you may have been my first viewer, but I'm horrible with names, as we discovered, we talked about today. So unless I've literally like shook your hand in person and got to know you in person, and it's that your real name on your screen name, I'm sorry. I wish I could, but I can't remember you. Yeah. So if you're just having a go at me, and there's no politeness, no decorum, no, like sandwich criticism, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are, man. You're just having a go at me for no reason, so it's pretty hard. And so if people do that nicely, I love it. It's great. It stops you from being a prick.
Yep.
It is so easy to get run away, like just to eat your own bollocks and just be your own echo chamber and just ignore everything that's bad and not,
Yeah.
So that's really good. But it's even worse when the person is obviously just an asshole.
Yeah.
But deep down there's a kernel of truth to it. Do you know what I mean? Like they're having a go at you and what they're saying is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's something that you're feeling slightly off about, or there's something you weren't quite sure how you felt about. Yeah, that stuff just gets stuck in your head, man. And it's not a big deal, but I guess my point is back to that same thing of 100 awesome people, awesome comments, constructive things, like offering good criticism, good ways to improve things, awesome ideas to make videos with, encouraging, and then one person, and that's all you can think about for the next 3 hours.
Ugh.
It's really hard to get past that.
That's brutal. Yeah. A similar thing with teaching evaluations at the end of the semester. It's like you get plenty of good ones and constructive suggestions for what to do next semester, and then the one that just sticks is the one that's and
you know who that person is.
Yeah, well, it's funny in the smaller classes. Yeah, you do. In the larger classes, sometimes it's harder with the online to know because there are lots of ghost students. But yeah, I do try, like you're saying, like I try to listen to the criticism and embrace it, and so it's not just me up there being a pompous, I know how to do everything with podcasting. Man, this podcasting stuff's changing all the time. I'm absolutely open to suggestions and best ways of moving forward. But boys, sometimes the nasty stuff will stick in a way it shouldn't. That's funny.
Yeah, dude.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. It comes in waves too. There'll be months where I just don't care and I'll have fun with it. I'll basically use it as an excuse to have some fun.
Yeah.
And then other times it'll be, I don't know, it cuts a little deeper. But yeah, it's a thing. Just so people know, I guess.
Yeah, good to have the heads up. What would you have any tips for people who are, say at that precipice, maybe where you were? Say you'd kicked around a few videos on YouTube a while back, and they were, AdSense was doing a little bit of a thing, but you were wanting to kind of go all in. And spend the majority of your time to try to grow the community and as such to be able to monetize a bit. And especially if they're thinking to have both a podcast and potentially YouTube. I know lots of podcasters use Patreon because podcasting itself is if you're just doing podcasting, it's very hard to monetize with ads and sponsors at the scale that you would need to make it worth your time. So Patreon is quite useful for podcasters. But are there any kinds of tips that you would offer people who are standing at that precipice, thinking about growing their, let's call it brand, on either YouTube and podcasting combo? What would you say? Tips or pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah. I think the biggest one for me is set goals that aren't directly related to money.
Okay.
And do that really early. So the one thing that got me, I said, I'm going to do this for a year. If I have one subscriber, I don't care. I'm going to do it for a year. And doing that for a year means making a video every single week for 52 weeks. I'm not allowed to give up. I'm not allowed to alter. I'm not allowed to change. That's the goal. 52 videos, 1 year.
Cool.
And then before I uploaded my first video, I wrote out, I think it was 3 levels of goals, and it was based around subscribers and view count.
Okay.
If I make this level, or if I don't make this level, I quit. No questions asked. I'm not allowed to continue. It's not working. You're throwing your time away. I gave it a nudge for a year. Move on. You learned something, move on. Next level, you're allowed to continue if you want to. See how you feel, see how motivated you're feeling. Maybe you just dragged yourself through hell for a year. You made it. You had some success, but now I'm allowed to quit. The number 3 one was basically kind of the same, but heavily motivated towards you should keep going. And then the third one was, if you get this level, you're not allowed to quit. You do it for another year.
Gotta go.
So that was really, really helpful to me because it wasn't... Video 1's easy.
Yeah.
Video 2's easy.
Yep.
Video 3's easy.
And they're even fun, those first few.
Yep. Video 6 is kind of like, oh man, I didn't plan this far ahead. What now? Video 15 is, oh, this has taken a lot of time out of my life. Video 32 is, oh God, do you know what I mean? So having something like, if I got to video 32 and I was feeling the way I was, obviously, whatever, made up number, but if I got to that point and didn't have that, I'd already agreed to do this and I had a pact with myself and I looked at the analytics at that point in time, I could have very easily just thrown in the towel.
Yeah.
And it would have been easy to, because it was nothing. I wasn't making money. I wasn't famous.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what had I actually done other than make 32 videos? That's all I'd done. So I found that really, really helpful. And I give that advice a lot.
That's pretty cool.
But also, don't make it about the money. Make it about something else. Like, yeah. 2, in terms of the content itself for podcasting, I think we kind of got to the fact that podcasting for me is a little bit of a crime of opportunity.
Yeah.
Rather than my main goal.
Yeah.
And a kind of it gets me in the door for things and stuff.
But it is for lots of people. That's why I think it's important for you to be talking on this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and we touched on this earlier on, right, is that podcasting doesn't have its own discoverability platform.
Yep.
It kind of does in different places, whatever. But
Apple and Spotify are introducing some new things now that are maybe both improving discoverability, but also adding more constraints and things.
But even then, what percentage of people that listen to, like, YouTube has the monopoly on videos?
It's YouTube,
right?
yeah.
So if people are into that kind of platform,
Yep,
and you're killing it on YouTube,
yep,
and they like the stuff you're making, they'll find you.
Yep.
You could be killing it on Apple Podcasts, but if I use Spotify,
yep,
and I don't talk to someone that recommends it to me, I'll never find you.
Yep.
So I kind of feel like podcasting by itself has to be the art, not the business, right? You need to find another way of promoting it. And this is where it gets hard, man. It's such a gray area. So one of the things that I did really early on with YouTube, which helped me heaps, was make myself a part of every community I could find that had anything to do with distilling.
Okay.
And then be useful there. So don't just show up and be like, listen to my podcast. Catch me. I don't know if you ever watch gaming stuff. But
no, I don't. But
the most hilarious thing that you ever see is there'll be someone streaming a game, and the guy will have like 6,000 viewers or something, and then someone will jump in and be like, watch my stream over at, and drop a link. Like, really, dude? Like, I don't... That person is not going to succeed.
No one's going to click that.
No. Why would they? If it was the opposite, right? There was someone that was making horrible content and had 2 streamers, and someone dropped in and was like, yo, this is horrible. Come watch me. It's an asshole move, but maybe it would work.
Yeah.
So I think people need to keep that in mind, right? So you can't jump into a forum and just start telling people. You need to go there and you need to be helpful. You need to be part of the community, actually part of the community. And then when it comes up, then you can bring up that you have a channel or you have a podcast. And then by then there's 45, 50 people that kind of at least know your screen name and know that you're a good person. And they'll remember it. You know, and then maybe they'll go check you out. And now maybe you convert 3 or 4 of those people that actually care. They're in this community. They're bumping shoulders with other people that care. Now they turn in. You've jump-started your word of mouth advertising kind of thing. So I think those sort of things are good, but have another platform. Have something.
Yep.
And there's so many different ways you can go about this. I landed on Facebook and Instagram. Someone suggested basically the opposite of what you think might be true. Find every platform you could possibly get an account for all of them, and don't even half-ass it. Like, if you got 16 different platforms, 16th ass everything.
Okay.
Just, just shotgun approach.
Okay.
Throw some stuff out there, see what sticks.
Yep.
Give it 2 months. Pick the 2 platforms with the biggest metrics, delete everything else and forget about them, and focus on those 2.
Okay. And
that kind of appealed to my analytical way of thinking, and that's what I did, and that's what worked for me. So I'm not saying that's great, but if you're trying to decide what to do, that might be a good idea. The upshot of it is that I don't care how much you think you like messing around on Instagram now. Once it's a job, it's a job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it is not the same thing. I took probably 6 months worth of research before I actually uploaded my first channel, and that was like 30 hours a week kind of research, and a lot of that was spending a lot of time in the forums, and I loved it, man. That was the best part of everything. Just kicking around in the forums, reading stuff, throwing ideas around. I loved it. I can't remember the last time I logged into a forum now. Not because I still like it, but it's work now. It's so hard. And I feel guilty for it, right? And so I log in and I do that, and I'm like, well, this isn't actually helping my business in any way, shape, or form now. It's meaningless. And I could be doing my freaking tax return.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. Opportunity cost now,
Yeah. So don't pick stuff based on interest, on what you think now. If that helps you get through and not burn out, cool. But just try and be objective about what is actually the right target market for you. So, for example, I don't know, man. What's a topic? If you're into shoes and you love Pinterest, but all the people that are into shoes and your podcast is about shoes, if they're all on Instagram, don't pick Instagram.
Right. And actually, you're mentioning target market. I think this is really interesting, given that the majority of students who take my course are Kiwis, although they might live around the world, and we certainly have plenty of international students. But market. Talk to me about how you think about markets, especially in terms of nation states like New Zealand versus United States, right? Because it depends on what your business is, right? Yeah. But for a lot of people, I know that Americans end up being a large target market simply because it's a big English-speaking country if you're doing English-speaking content, and also lots of this creator type stuff. And YouTube itself is an American company, right? So there's, I'm just curious how you think about, is your biggest market Americans, or is it? Yeah.
Off the cuff, don't quote me on these because it's probably wrong. I think on any given month, maybe 54% of my audience is America.
Okay. Yeah.
The second would be somewhere between something in Europe, Australia, and South Africa. Always fluctuate.
Yeah.
And that would be 12%.
Okay. And then New Zealand is?
2%.
Yeah. So how does that knowledge of the nationality of your audience, does that affect any way that you build community or create content?
For me, no, because it's such a niche community.
Yeah.
It's a very, very specific type of person. That's not true. It's a very specific type of person that I want to communicate to, out of a relatively specific kind of person that might be interested.
Got it.
So the real cliche one for me is frat boy wants to get drunk for cheap.
Yep.
See ya. Don't want you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm about. Piss off.
Yeah.
Please leave. I don't want you.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
They'll watch the potato vodka one, but you don't need them in the comments, and they're not going to be paying your Patreon.
Well, even if they are, it's going against what I want in the community, right?
Okay.
I want a community of geeks. Geek is a term of endearment to me.
Yes.
That's what I love. I'm always a little bit scared of saying this because I think people will take it the wrong way. But at the end of the day, I don't care about distilling. I care about problem solving. And distilling is a hobby that gives me the exact kind of problem solving I love.
Oh, cool.
So that idea of my problem solving is I want to get smashed this Friday for the least amount of money, and it's Thursday and I need it by tomorrow. I don't care, dude.
Yeah.
You're the wrong person and you'll destroy what I'm trying to create, right?
Yeah.
So, but once you get past that, it's a very specific kind of person, but the interesting thing is that it's very hard to nail that person down. It's very much personality based, and it almost has nothing to do with location.
Those demographics. So when you're taking on ads sponsors,
that's different.
Because you got to provide them with demographic data, presumably, and
so I got on. There's an interesting thing too, where you'll see, so for example, the same company will be both in New Zealand and America. The American company will either reach out to me or reach out to an agent and say, we'd love to sponsor you, love your content, I'll check them out. Oh, you're in New Zealand? Oh shit, we can't do that. Sorry. And I'll back out instantly because it's the New Zealand sister companies or another branch of the company. It's their jurisdiction, and I'm in New Zealand. Like,
Yeah.
no, dude. Like, you're in America. That's where my audience is. I'm basically an American company working in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But it's pretty hard to sling that. The other way that it shows up is in kind of communication ways throughout the videos. So the obvious one for me is metric versus imperial units.
60 degrees Celsius.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of an ongoing joke.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do it, but I'll kind of do it begrudgingly, and it's like, it's an ongoing joke that metric is superior.
Yeah.
Like, drag your ass out of the past. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, it's 60 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in freedom units. It's over there on the screen, or down at the, like, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's an ongoing joke. It doesn't offend anyone because they know I'm taking the mickey if they're new.
Right.
But I'm giving the information to people that need it. Sometimes I've played, like, for example, I'll use pounds instead of kilos in a title because I know the bigger audiences in America.
For searchability.
Exactly. Yeah. So it shows up in little ways like that.
Yeah.
But mostly it's about the personality of the person.
Yeah. And have you thought about creating a U.S. branch of the business? How insanely complicated is that? Because right, you're married to an American.
I am. Yeah. She's from California.
Yeah.
My spiritual home is fast becoming Texas, and I mean that.
Yeehaw! As a Texan, I embrace that.
Yeah.
Happy to have you as a Texan.
The spirits coming out of Texas, the whole. This is not what this podcast is about, but for me, it's exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's just such a huge leap, and it's kind of like, what benefit would I get from that?
And you got to deal with our awful tax system in the U.S. It's just so convoluted and messy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, dude. So the other thing is that I still haven't worked out what this side business is exactly. I've got ideas. I've got things in the pipeline. I don't know what it's going to turn into. And that may very well heavily influence what I do in the future. So what I would say for people is, people have got all sorts of different reasons for getting into this, right? If they're wanting to start a podcast to network, whatever, to get the job they want, or they're in academia and they're wanting to just have access to people that are doing interesting papers or whatever. It's marketing 101, dude, is figure out what your target market is. And your target market and the reason I say this is your target market may not actually be the same for your product and your podcast, but you damn sure better know what the difference is and figure out how that works together. So, like, for example, if I end up selling a product, but my product is only available in New Zealand, I better figure out how do I put this? I would rather have 10% market share or market penetration in New Zealand, and that be 10% of 4 million, than have 10% penetration in America of, what are you at, 50 million or something?
350 million maybe. Yeah.
That extra million subscribers means nothing to me if they can't buy my product. And the point of my video is to sell widgets in New Zealand. Do you know what I mean? So it's tricky. I don't know.
Thanks a bunch, Jesse. I really appreciate it,
My pleasure, man.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah. Let's hang out in Texas sometime.
Yeah, dude. Let's. I don't know when we're going to be able to do that.
No, still might be a while. Thanks for listening, and kakite ano.